Over 26,000 Americans died prematurely in 2010 as a direct result of not having health insurance. Nearly all of these deaths could have been avoided if the U.S. used a universal health care system. Universal health care refers to a system that provides health care and financial protection to all of its citizens. Although health care is currently seen in America as a privilege, it needs to be a right in which all Americans can afford and have access to when needed. First, I will explain the current healthcare system in America and the negative effects that come with it, and then proceed to why universal healthcare is important for our country to have. According to the Atlantic Magazine's website, the United States is the only developed nation in the world without some form of universal healthcare, shortened as UHC. While other countries have declared healthcare to be a basic right, the U.S. treats healthcare as a privilege that is only available to those who can afford it. In this sense, healthcare in America is treated as an economic good, such as a TV or a computer, instead of as a social good that would benefit the country as a whole. This notion creates negative consequences for everyone in America. The most obvious victims of America's decision to treat healthcare as a privilege instead of a right are the 45 million Americans who lack insurance. According to Miles J. Zaremski of the Huffington Post, in contrast to prevailing stereotypes, 80% of the uninsured are hardworking Americans who are employed or come from working families. However, they are unable to obtain health insurance. As a result of these difficulties accessing health care, the Institute of Medicine estimates an excess annual mortality rate of 25%, which translates into over 18,000 excess deaths a year for people between ages 25 and 64 that could have been prevented if they had health care. As well as affecting the uninsured, America's lack of universal health care also negatively affects those who are insured. With employers dropping health insurance at record pace, more and more middle-class Americans are at risk of uninsurance. Employees are finding their wage increases to be smaller and smaller as the cost of providing health insurance skyrockets for employers. However, the most direct way in which the insured are affected by the lack of UHC is shown through a 2005 study that surveyed Americans who filed for personal bankruptcy. In this study, more than 46% of those surveyed cited a medical cause for their bankruptcy. Out of these, only 30% were uninsured, meaning that 7 out of 10 people in the survey were insured when they filed for bankruptcy. In other words, high medical bills due to lack of universal health care can lead to bankruptcy even for those who are insured. Now that it is clear how the lack of UHC negatively affects Americans, it is important to know the reasons why having UHC is important for our country. Although the main argument critics against UHC present is that it would be too expensive and would increase personal taxes, it would also help decrease spending on healthcare. The average American spends almost $8,000 a year on healthcare, twice as much as any other country. And according to BrazenLife.com, countries that have some kind of universal coverage generally spend less. Although UHC may be costly at first, over time it would financially benefit Americans. As well as being a financial issue, UHC also fights for moral issues. America is known to be a country that is of opportunity. These opportunities that many Americans often boast about having should undoubtedly include the opportunity to have the services of a physician when and if one is needed. If America wants to be a country that is of opportunity, it needs to be united enough, caring enough, and loving enough to make sure that all of its citizens have access to affordable health care regardless of their financial status, even if it means an increase in personal taxes. For the Pledge of Allegiance doesn't say, with liberty and justice, only for those who can afford it. Finally, Healthcare needs to be a right for all Americans because the preamble of the U.S. Constitution states that its purpose is to promote the general welfare of the people. Just as all Americans have the right to an education, they should have the right to health care because they both promote the general welfare of the people. In conclusion, the lack of a universal health care system causes for negative consequences for all Americans, and having one will create a better off country, both medically and financially speaking. If you would like to support the fight towards universal health care, visit the Universal Healthcare Action Network's website at uhcan.org, where you can make donations and learn other ways to support the organization.